All right, we're live. We're back once again. I'm your host, Sunny Ray from the Sunny Ray Show. Thanks to our sponsor, Raz Rocket. Today, I'm joined by Evan. Evan, how you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's great to chat with you, Sunny.
Where are you calling in from today?
I'm in San Francisco, so in the
Nice,
office right now,
awesome.
co-working space. Sorry if there's a bit of an echo here. It's not soundproofed.
No, your audio is perfect. Your audio is perfect. So maybe just give people like a one or two liner on Kimaru, and I know that the topic is one that's perhaps a bit challenging for people to get their head around, but I
Sure,
promise we'll
sure.
come back to it and we'll double click on it. But give us just kind of the headline in terms of company you're building.
Yeah, for sure. And kudos on the good pronunciation of Kimaru. So
I took
Kimaru
Japanese for
is
3 years, by the way.
excellent.
Does it inspire? Is it related to Japanese, or did I just mess that one up?
It is exact. That's exactly right. So Kimaru is the verb for decide or to be decided, and what we are is a decision intelligence platform for supply chain logistics. Essentially, what we do is help people navigate complex decisions where it's always about a series of trade-offs, right? So we help people basically, run simulations on all the different trade-offs and then make recommendations on which is the best action to take.
And okay, yeah, sorry, I have so many questions, but we'll park it for now. We'll come back to it. Like I said, I always like to start with the person, right? Before the company and all this tech that we deal with and sometimes get lost in.
Yeah,
But
for
tell us a little
sure.
bit about you. Yeah, where are you from? Are you Canadian?
Yeah. Good catch on the accent, eh? Uh, yeah, so I'm from Vancouver originally, and I've spent the last 23 years in Japan. The reason that I first came to Japan was straight out of school. I had this idea, I had this business idea, because my family grew up in commercial fishing. My father, grandfather, and in like especially in the 80s and 90s, all of the fish that we caught, we were selling to Japan. So I used to go every summer out on the boat, and I always imagined like if we just kept going that way, Japan is our neighbor, we could go right over there. So I had this idea that I could go to Japan and create a more direct import route for Canadian seafood, and then like promote and market Canadian seafood in Japan. And I'd be able to like cut out a bunch of the middlemen because there were like 50 people between my dad catching fish and it getting to people in the supermarket or the restaurant. So that was the original idea.
Interesting, interesting. So you said you grew up on in Vancouver Island, and you spent
Yeah, yeah.
summers working on your father's fishing boat. So
Hmm.
what was it like waking up at, I don't know, dawn to work the deck, and what did those early years teach you about teamwork and hard work and things like that?
It was the best training to be an entrepreneur. I started going when I was only like 13. And the first summer I went, my dad said, okay, you're on a cruise share. You get a percentage of every fish we catch. I think I got like 1% or something like that. But there's nothing more inspiring because you're not just making a wage. Everything that you do to catch one more fish means you make more money. So that was so inspiring. It had me like, sharpening hooks and, cleaning the deck and like making sure everything was running really, really well. Great training to be, a CEO because you realize how everything is integrated in a business, um, including morale. Like when everybody was happy, we definitely caught more fish.
So you said you originally planned to become or to follow your father, right? And become a fishboat captain. But then what happened like when I guess government restrictions made that difficult?
Yeah. In the 90s when I was graduating from, school and getting ready to, possibly take over the boat, it was a time that government restrictions came in and they took an area that used to cover the whole West Coast and they split it into three, and then all these different licensing and quota restrictions came in. Um, retro- in retrospect, I think it was because the government felt that it was too hard to maintain field biologists, and so they wanted to consolidate the fishing fleets into like a corporate fleet, and then maybe they thought that like I don't know, it was easier to manage or something like that. But also, I was just interested in getting out and seeing more of the world and traveling and stuff. And I was fascinated by Japan. So I landed in Japan in 2003, and I worked with JETRO, the Japan External Trade Organization, to explore this, import idea. It turned out there was a lot of kind of protectionism in the market, but the marketing took off when people found out that I understood digital marketing in 2003. This was pretty basic stuff like email marketing, basic website optimization and stuff. I started to get a lot of requests for that, and so I started a marketing, or co-founded rather, a marketing agency, and that's the business that really kept me in Japan. I ran that for 7 years. And it became almost like a little venture studio because we were spinning little SaaS products out of the marketing agency. And then I started working with the big like media agencies, the big ad agencies like Dentsu, which is like the biggest ad agency in the world. And that was so serendipitous because it got into the earliest application of AI in like the commercial. If you look at the history of AI, it was basically search algorithms like Google, and then it was predictive ad targeting, real time recommendation campaigns for ads and this kind of stuff, and then website optimization. So through that, I started not just like running campaigns for large clients, but also recommending tools. And I started coming to the Valley to source those tools, and started bringing tech to Japan. And that turned into like the next part of my career, which was basically Japan market entry consulting, and for like 6 different companies, I was either the country manager or sales director. So I'd run their whole GTM function.
Interesting. Uh, I think it was in 2011, Tohoku, the earthquake or whatever, the Fukushima nuclear incident, right, devastated inbound tourism, and it hit your agency hard, right? So how did that crisis force you
Yeah.
to kind of reinvent yourself, and what was it like making the decision to leave Tokyo or Hokkaido for Takuya?
Yeah, because I'd landed in Hokkaido originally, closest port to basically the shipping route between North America and all of Asia. Ships leave Vancouver or LA, they land in Hokkaido first. Um, so the marketing agency was started there. We did a lot of inbound tourism marketing as the especially like Niseko ski resort was really taking off. Um, so by 2011, I had both the agency and a spin out SaaS company called Tourism Builder that was for destination marketing organizations. Yeah, the earthquake hit the industry super hard. I kind of struggled on for another 18 months. We'd had like a little bit of early stage angel funding, and so we had a little bit of runway there, but it was really hard. So in the end, I had to kind of sideline most of my projects, close the agency, and then go work for other agencies. And that's around the time that let's see, I first worked with eAgency, which was transitioning from a web dev shop, kind of part of the silo of Asatsuki, ADK, the third largest media agency in Japan. But then we started getting, lots of projects working with other agencies as well, like J. Walter Thompson, yeah, Densa Digital. It's kind of like an interconnected ecosystem. So, you got a pitch to a big client, and you'll pull in talent from anybody who's kind of friendly to your agency.
Regarding that e-agency, I think you guys were doing like Google Analytics and optimizing things like that, right? For Fortune 500 companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I said it was transitioning from being a web dev shop, it was transitioning into like, okay, we've built websites for everybody. Now what do we do? How do we expand the business? Right. So they realized that the next thing to do was to like continually optimize the website. So you'd use analytics, like when people come to the site, what are they doing? What pages are they looking at? Which buttons are they clicking on and stuff? And then try and make it easier for people to find what they were looking for, or get to a conversion point, like downloading maybe a PDF, or calling you, or submitting a contact form. So that agency had developed a really good consultancy around using Google Analytics. And what was it called at that time? It was like I think it was like Google 360 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, it was transitioning into like the premium analytics platform. This is around 2013. So I joined and we started with the analytics stuff. But really quickly after joining, this email came across my desk from a really interesting company that was going to be coming to Japan, and they were looking for partners. And that was at the time kind of a Silicon Valley darling, a company called Optimizely. They were backed by Andreessen Horowitz, former Googler Dan Soroker had started the company. So they were cool. They'd had enough ARR that they could start opening up other geos. And so I hung out with that team. We put a partnership agreement in place with the agency, and we wound up, you know, spinning up an office, helping them to get a team going here. And it was a really, really good experience because I'd been doing these, small kind of startups that I was mostly bootstrapping. And I really wanted to learn like the Silicon Valley model. How do you build something that helps a lot of people? And the way to do that is to get VC funding. So it gave me a look inside a VC backed startup and how they ran everything. And it was amazing. It was so structured. There was so much intentionality around how they did like sales training. I had the opportunity to come here to the Bay Area and attend their sales kickoffs. And man, what an incredible education that was. It was like so eye opening. So for any aspiring entrepreneur, you got to come to the Bay Area at some point and just spend some time here so you can see how this like fantastic machine actually runs. Because until you actually see it for yourself, you just can't imagine what it's like. At that time, it was before there were a lot of like agentic assists with sales processes. And so everybody had these like the whole sales team, you could walk the floor. Everybody was on a call. Everybody was on a headset at a stand-up desk. People were like walking around closing deals, and the energy was amazing. It was a lot like going to the gym. Like everybody was all, kind of pumped up. And also coming from Japan, I couldn't believe how casual it was. People were like they were just getting stuff done, and it didn't really matter let's say the protocol, right? Because in Japan, everything is about protocol. These guys were like, "Yeah, man, I'll send you that contract. Just make sure you sign that because I gotta go buy a new car," and like stuff that you would never tell a customer in Japan. So really, initially culture shock, and then it was a great education. So I kind of started to learn the playbook about how you do GTM or run a go-to-market strategy for a new area like Japan. And then I kind of reverse engineered components of that and hybridized it to create, this GTM strategy for Japan. And then the Optimizely alumni, people who went on to other companies, were great. They kept introducing me to other companies that were ready to think about going to Japan, like Parsley and Full Story. All of these personal referrals came. So I spent quite a long time consulting and just kind of helping with market entry, really learning that like high growth startup playbook. And then I spent the longest time working as country manager for Dynamic Yield, which was an Israeli startup, does something similar to what Optimizely did, similar AI algorithms. And then after that, I worked as sales director for Meltwater, which was a unicorn company out of Norway. And so they were looking to rebuild their sales team that had been quite disrupted by the pandemic.
I've been a customer of Optimizely. I've been a customer of Meltwater. So we've probably, maybe we've even interacted in the past. Hey, Evan, I wanted to be fair and give you, the last third of this interview to talk a little bit about Kimaru. You were saying how, it's sometimes a bit hard for most people to get their head around it, but let's tackle that a bit. Yeah. Like, by the way, I had like
Yeah, for
a
sure.
bazillion other questions to ask you about your past and your present and AI and all your experience, and maybe we could do like a follow-up down the line, but I
Yeah,
want to
for
make sure
sure.
we deliver on that promise to everyone.
Yeah, so what we do is decision intelligence. This is a super hot field right now. Just yesterday, Gartner launched their first Magic Quadrant. We're a bit early stage, so we weren't on there this year, but hopefully next year we'll have the budget to go through that whole process. But decision intelligence is fascinating. It's a term that's a little bit misused. So we like to go by, the strict definition of the person who coined the term and created the initial discipline, and that's Dr. Lorian Pratt. So Dr. Pratt wrote the O'Reilly Handbook on decision intelligence, which is called the Decision Intelligence Handbook. You can find it on Amazon. She outlines there a methodology called causal decision diagram. So it's a way for mapping out complex decisions, gets everybody aligned. You can do it, on the back of a napkin as an analog process, but it's also a great framework for then connecting data and running, machine learning and AI simulations on. But just to conceptualize it a little bit, let's think about what's involved in a good decision making process, and imagine throughout your life, Sunny. Imagine if every decision that you ever made, every critical decision, you not only had all the information to hand to make the best decision, but every decision you made was recorded and tracked. And then you could look back at that decision and unpack exactly why it was good or bad. Right? Imagine what a superpower that would be.
That would be crazy. Okay, so is that what you do?
Yeah, that's exactly what decision intelligence is. So we do that for supply chain, which is an incredibly volatile industry that seems to get more volatile every day, whether it's tariff disruptions or changing weather patterns or global conflicts. It's a really, really hard job because you have all of these factors that are essentially trade-offs, right? Like our customers are planners. They're supply chain, inventory planners, they're supplier managers, they're procurement managers. They're basically the people who have to get the components or the raw ingredients in order to make the stuff and then get the stuff to the market. And to do that, you've got logistics. You got to look at when your shipment is coming in and which freight service should you be using. Is there a disruption, say a storm that's going to slow down the ship? So you got to have the truck go meet it at a different port. There's all these rerouting components. Then just basic inventory. When should you replenish? How many units should you purchase from which supplier, from which region, which who's affected by which tariffs? All these complex trade-offs, right? Now, traditionally, supply chain planners have worked in spreadsheets, worked in Excel. Everybody has like systems of record, these historical, SAP, Oracle, kind of the first truly viable commercial software was like these systems of record, or the old green screen systems, what's called like the AS400 that Microsoft used to. Everybody used these in like the 90s. But the problem is those are just like data capture systems, right? They don't tell you what's coming down the pipeline. And so everybody pulls data out into spreadsheets and then builds these complex models that tries to navigate all these trade-offs, right? So what we do is sit on top of those systems, the old systems of record, or even the newer generation supply chain management systems, planning systems like Kinaxis or O9 Solutions. We sit on top of those data sets, and then we pull in external signals from like weather and shipping and like component databases, or supplier management databases, or we can even do what Meltwater does, which is like news ingestion and analysis. And we can tell if maybe there's going to be like a disruption because of a labor dispute at a certain supplier or something like that, right? Once we've got those signals pulled in, we utilize the decision intelligence framework, basically these causal decision diagrams, and that gives us essentially like a digital twin, a virtual model of the organization and all these trade-offs they have to make. And then with that virtual twin, we can run simulations. So what happens if you take, action A versus action B? And it sounds familiar because you've used Optimize, right? Which is a A/B testing platform. So we use recommendation algorithms that simulate what happens if you take action A or B. And then, we combine all that kind of like nervous system of sensory data, production, uptime data, warehouse capacity data combined with all this external input into a world model. The world model is like an orchestration framework, which then allows you to use AI without risk of hallucination because you've got all the physical constraints mapped out. You've got your like regulatory frameworks loaded in. This world model gives a simulation environment that is hallucination free. And then when we surface a recommendation, we basically take away all the decision fatigue around combining these data sets. We run simulations to make a recommendation. So we take all that heavy load away from the planner, and then we allow them to do what they're supposed to do, which is just review the decision and either approve it or adjust it slightly, and then take action on it. So that was a lot. Let's unpack it for a sec. Are you tracking so far? Does that make sense?
And surprisingly, I am. Yeah,
Well, it can be a
that's
little
super
bit to
cool.
envision.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit hard to envision,
I mean,
but
I have a lot of
let's think
questions
about,
around these decision frameworks and what they actually look like and how they work. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, we can maybe save that for part two. But yeah, but go ahead, Evan.
Well, actually, everybody uses a system like this almost on a daily basis. So if you think about what it is, it's basically causal AI, right? So if you've ever used Google Maps or your car navigation, it's exactly the same thing. It's a map, a physical, map of every, let's say, option you can take, every route you can take, right? And when you put in a destination or in decision intelligence, you set a desired outcome, a KPI, like let's say cost reduction around your supplier management. What Google Maps does is it takes that physical framework, the map, basically a world model, and then it takes in the sensory input of all the other cars that are using Google Maps that are out there on the road and how quickly they're moving. So if they stop, Google Maps can then predict using the same type of causal AI as us. If people have been stopped for like a long time or they're starting to all congest, kind of pile up, they have basically a disruption metric which says, all right, this route is too congested. It sort of reaches a tipping point and it says, take this alternate route, or here's a recommendation for an alternate route, right? And then you, as the driver, you can review that alternate route and you can accept it, or you could override it. You could say, actually, I know a back street, I'm going to go this way. So Kimaru works exactly the same as that. It's a causal engine that maps out, all the routes you can take, essentially all the decisions that you can take to get to your desired objective. It in real time pulls in data to sense whether there's going to be a disruption. And then we have a proprietary metric that determines whether that disruption is going to be just a little ripple or if it's going to expand into a big tsunami. And then it makes recommendations about how to deal with it. And the human user reviews those recommendations, either approves them and takes action on them, or maybe adjusts them a little bit using their best judgment and their personal experience.
Interesting. If I wanted to learn more about the decision frameworks you base this on, like where would I get to double click on that idea?
Well, definitely read Dr. Pratt's book. Again,
Sorry,
that's
what
the decision.
how do you spell Dr. P-R-E-T-Z?
Dr. Lorien, so Lorien Pratt, Pratt. It's the Decision Intelligence Handbook.
That sounds
Or
so
you
cool.
could,
Okay. And like
yeah,
this is
or
a
you could
framework for
read.
making any type of decision. Like I don't know, should I get
Mhm.
married? Should I have kids? Should I move? Like
Yeah,
stuff like that too. Really interesting.
yeah, totally.
I just
Basically,
hmm.
what Dr. Pratt did through her consulting practice is determine the commonalities to any complex decision, and so she made this framework that starts with your desired outcomes. So those for us that basically pulls from historical KPIs like reducing production costs. Yeah, that's the book there. That's the one. Look for the owl. Um, yeah, so this framework takes your desired outcomes. and then it looks at the actions you can take that are within your control, and then what those actions are going to affect, basically the causal chains. Those are called intermediates. And finally, it takes the things that are outside of your control and it calls those externals. That might be, tariffs or say market fluctuations, something like that, right? And you map all of those out, map out the actions you can take that will actually affect your desired outcomes, and then map out your stakeholders, which departments are involved, and then you connect your data to that. And in our case, we've productized that, and we've built out a proprietary system for measuring all of these different signals, measuring how what the causal effect of these are going to be. That allows our system to propagate this causal decision diagram, and then that powers a decision digital twin so that we can run simulations and make recommendations.
Very cool. I just dropped it in my Amazon cart here. I gotta get that. That sounds really interesting. Well, Evan, thank you so much for your time today. Do you want to maybe tell people where they can, like your just maybe your website at is it kimaru.ai?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So definitely
Yeah.
check
And
out
then where can people follow you as well? Are you on
kimaru.ai.
Twitter? Are you on LinkedIn? Maybe just share that with people as well.
LinkedIn is best. So just look for Evan Burkosky, EvanBurkosky. I'm the only one on the planet with this name, so you'll easily find me.
Okay.
And the spelling of Kimaru is Kimaru.ai, Kimaru. And again, that's the Japanese verb for to decide or to be decided, rather. And you can reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to chat about this kind of stuff. So, message me on LinkedIn. I'm here in San Francisco right now. We're meeting with lots of customers and pitching to VCs right now. But I split my time between here and Tokyo and then our Austin office as well.
Very cool. Well, thanks again. You've been gracious with your time, and yeah, that was fascinating. Maybe hang back for just 1 minute. I'll just bring this one to a close. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and until next time.